All right. Smile. And I always do some editing, especially on the front end, because sometimes I stumble over stuff. So anyway, but yeah, so we are recording right now.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we're recording now. Okay, I have to always look at the button. So, all right. Welcome to the Organizedpreneur Podcast. I am Aldreama Harper, podcast launch strategist, online business system specialist, and host of the Organizedpreneur Podcast. And listen, I got to tell y'all, I'm so excited about this episode. We were kind of talking a little bit before we hit that record button about how we kind of geek out on stuff like tech and all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully if you're watching this, the replay of this, that you can still stay with us because we just may dive so deep that we may not be able to come back out. But I'm really excited about this call because I am interviewing Tahjma Van Buren, who is an entrepreneur who specializes in search engine optimization for podcasting. Now, she does some other things as well, but today we're going to be talking about search engine optimization or SEO and for podcasters. Now, we met on my networking event and there was just this instant connection. It was like, girl, I got to have you on my show. and so we've been talking about some other things that we're going to do some collaboration on, but we're not going to talk about it right now, but just so that people will know that that's something that we're going to be doing. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. But Tahjma, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited that you are here. What is going on, my friend? How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. I'm really excited about the topic, and we're going to get into that, a little bit in just a few seconds. But why don't you, for the sake of those who have no idea who you are, because first of all, they're probably looking at your name and they're probably like, how do you pronounce it? So I'm so glad that I got the heads up on how to pronounce it, but because I just love your name, Tahjma. And of course, she said, it's like Taj Mahal. Yeah. And so, but I'm super excited, about you being on the show. And so tell us a little bit about, yourself, where you are, what you do, how do you serve others, that kind of thing.
Sure. I am Tahjma Van Buren. I am based in North Carolina. I specifically specialize in search engine optimization. And that's specifically helped me in podcasting because you can have a podcast, you can have it edited really well, but then how do you get other people to listen to it? So that's where a lot of that came from. I've been building websites since I was like 12 or 13. And I started in my podcast journey because I wanted to do blogging, but then YouTube and social media really started taking such a huge leap into what was going on in our world, and people didn't want to read anymore. So how do I get people to hear what I'm saying? And how do I cultivate community for myself? So that's where a lot of this comes from.
Oh, wow. You said you've been doing this since 12 years old. Listen, I got to tell you don't look much over 12. I mean that in a really good way, so
I
just,
appreciate it.
yeah. I mean that in a very, very good way. So you said you were doing websites and things like that. Are you still actually doing websites as well, or just focusing on podcasting?
So I do anything in the realm of digital marketing because search engine optimization is kind of the backbone of all of that, which puts me in a space where I'm writing blogs for other people, producing podcast episodes, helping people to do their entire website copy. Because if you are going to pull all these keywords out, then you need to be able to use them in the best possible way. So anything in the content realm is what I'm doing.
Gotcha. So how is that going right now? Because there's, all of these buzzwords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, content creators, content specialists, content used to mean something else. Like content
Yeah.
used to mean like there's this bucket and there's content in it, but, it's definitely, the definition has evolved, over the years. But so how is that going? Like I know you serve, podcasters and you do websites. Is there a specific type of client that you serve?
I love service providers, particularly. My entire family has grown up I've been around businesses, I've been around service providers my entire life. And the thing that's been consistent with them is, how do I stay in my craft and get other people to recognize that I exist? Whether that was a tax professional or my mom is an event planner and a coach, how do I get people to know I exist? So I
Mm.
love being able to kind of just take that piece off of their plate, as far as, you don't have to post on Instagram all the time. Let me handle that for you. You don't have
Mhm.
to figure out how to optimize your entire website. I can handle that for you so that you can stay in your particular zone of genius.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Now, so did I hear you say that your family, you have a family of entrepreneurs as well? Is that what I just
Down
heard?
to my 15-year-old sister. You know those little
Wow.
those dots, the diamond dots, I think they're called, where you can make like a little picture of whatever you want it to be, and they produce with these little dots.
Ah.
She's been doing those for a while, down to she was asking, okay, well, I want to send this picture off to the website. How do I make sure that I can get as many of these as possible, because I'm doing all these chores, doing all this work in order to get this money? And I said, okay, well, why don't you figure out how to make it yourself? And she went and did this whole thing to figure out how to make it herself.
Wow.
So she's doing a lot of that information now.
Wow, I absolutely love that because, it really piqued my interest when you said, you have a family of entrepreneurs. And because when you have that example in your life, it's like that's all you see. It's like, I don't know how to do anything else but be an entrepreneur. Now I can say for myself, I didn't really have that, but
Oh,
I knew that it was something that I wanted to do because even as you said, your sister, at the age of 15, my first entrepreneurial endeavor was like when I was in junior high. But it was something that just, you know, that kind of, it was like that bug just hit me, and so, but I didn't necessarily have family, around me that did it. So I didn't have an example. So my journey was, all of the pitfalls and everything that I had to kind of learn on my own, right?
mm,
That it presents its challenges, but it's also sometimes a good thing because sometimes you only learn, as you're doing it, right?
a
And
huge
so
amount of error, trial and error, over and
trial
over
and
and
error.
over.
Yeah, yeah. So as we're talking about entrepreneurship, and we're definitely going to get into, some of the other things, but so what are some of the things that you've learned over the years from being in a family of entrepreneurs? What are some, like, you know, like some things that maybe your mom told you, or, even your little sister probably told you?
The lesson that sticks out the most for me is, don't be afraid to just keep trying something. Even if
Mm,
you try a whole bunch of different things, at some point you're going to land on the thing that really resonates with you. Before my little sister was born, I used to watch my mom. She's done like virtual assistant work and concierge and interior design. She has like over 20 years in corporate America. I've watched her try so many
yeah.
things over and over. This woman never goes anywhere without a book either. She could be going down the street to
Wow.
Food Line. She's going to have a book with her so that she can maximize her time and figure out what's the next thing that she's going to try, which really led her into a lot of the work that she does now, which is event planning. So I think a lot of times when you're talking to younger kids, at least when I was growing up, people are afraid to try different different things because they don't want to be loud and wrong. But the experience that I've had is I'm going to keep trying it, or I'm going to keep trying something, because either way that shows that I'm having some level of effort, and it's got to work at some point on a mathematical front.
Yeah. So when you decided to launch your business, what did your mom say? I'm sure she was like, encouraging. I'm sure of that. But
Yes.
what did what did she say when you decided to launch your business?
Dang. I haven't thought about this in forever. That was quite interesting. She asked a lot of the hard questions. Okay, are you doing this because you actually want to? Is this something? Are you doing it because other people are saying this? All of the hard questions. She's a tough kind of woman. And she said, okay, this is a huge decision. It's going to suck for a while.
Wow.
But this is going to be worth it. And I'm in your corner. Down to the point of, there are times where I'm talking to different people and there'll be a conversation that I have never experienced before. And I say, I don't know. Let me check with my advisors. She's my advisor.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. This is, I love the fact that, she asked the hard questions, because sometimes, people will, not be realistic, or not talk about the non-sexy side of entrepreneurship, right? That it is not for the faint at heart. It's not, if you're not in it, you just might as well stop, because it's not for people who don't have, kind of like tough skin, get used to rejection, things like that. And you got to be in it for the long haul. And so I'm glad that you have someone, that's saying, that you have an advisor, right?
Yes.
You have an advisor. I mean, that to me is like, the best scenario ever, is to have, an advisor, someone that's been through it, that's still, and that's still in the game, and so that is pretty cool. Now,
there will be so many times where I will go and I'll tell her a problem that I'm having, and I will be boo-hoo crying. She said, okay, are you done? Are you done? I know you have feelings. You had your moments.
Wow.
Now I need you to get up and let's do something about it. And in the moment, you're like, come on, now I'm trying to feel how I want to feel. But it always changes the game for me, because honestly, you could be down for an extended amount of time if you allowed yourself to be.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean about the unsexy part of entrepreneurship. Because people see out there, people are showing their, big homes, or their Lamborghinis, or, all of that kind of stuff. They don't talk a lot about, and maybe there's some people that's doing it now, but, it's entrepreneurship is something that a lot of people aspire to do, or to be an entrepreneur. And because they see all of the, stuff out there where people, I'm grinding, I'm, whatever the terminology is that they're using. But it's really, if you're not ready for it, I don't advise it, for anybody. Now, is it rewarding? Absolutely. It's absolutely rewarding. And but there are certain things that people need to know, about entrepreneurship, if they are seeking it as, this if I'm going in, I'm going in. And if that's what if they have to be ready for that, you got to be all in, is what I'm saying. And there's a lot of people, because there are statistics that show that the first 5 years or something like that, entrepreneur is, the failure rate is high. But wouldn't you agree that this is the best time to be an entrepreneur?
Ooh, the best time to be an entrepreneur. I think any time is really the best time to be an entrepreneur. Anytime that you have a problem that you feel like you can solve, or you think, honestly, you think you could do something better than somebody else, that's the best time for you to go ahead and take the leap.
Yeah.
Regardless of age, regardless of access, if you think that you have the capacity and you're willing to take on that responsibility, like you said, I would take the leap.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how long have you been in business again? Because I love this. Go ahead.
2 years.
Uh-huh.
I've
Yeah.
been in
Yeah.
business for 2 years.
Yeah.
September 17th actually will be the anniversary. So that was very
That
funny that
is,
you said that.
yeah, yeah. That's when the show is going to air, on the 17th. Yes, yes. So, having said that, so it's been 2 years. So what would be like the worst slump, like the worst time in your entrepreneurial journey? What has been like the worst, time in that you can say, you know what, in the past in 2 years, I've never had this happen? Can you think of anything
That has happened already?
that has happened? Yeah, that has happened.
I think there is a phase, from what I can tell, I've experienced it and I'm watching other people go through it. I think there is a phase that most entrepreneurs go through where they start comparing what they're doing to other people and almost mimicking other people's services. And that's as long as you want it to be. But it's a hard curve to go under. Specifically for me, in a space where, unfortunately, on the web development side of things, there's a lot more. There's not as many people that look like me that do this kind of work, from what I
Gotcha.
can tell anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start comparing yourself, I remember I was looking at other people who do digital marketing or do podcast work or anything of that nature, and I was like, okay, well, that seems to be working for them. Let me try that. But I don't know if that actually is working for them, because just because someone gets 100 likes on something doesn't mean that they're making any money from it. And that,
That's
at the end
right.
of the day, that's what we're in the game for.
Mm-hmm.
So that phase of, it was probably like 6 to 9 months of me being like, okay, this seems to be working for somebody. How do I make this work? But then I had to dial it back and say, okay, what is in your capacity to do? Because one, you're comparing yourself to other people that are probably 2 to 3 times your age. But then two, you're comparing yourself to people that have more than just themselves in their business. They have other people that can handle all of these other things, which is very unique, especially to service providers, because oftentimes we're using our intellectual property and we are the only person within our business.
Yeah, yeah. That is so true. I mean, I think like, so as a professional organizer, which is, that was the longest run for me. And I can tell you now, I've started a lot of different businesses.
Okay.
And so some that was like, I want to do this, so, and some, I made a little bit of money, for a while. And then I decided, I was like, I don't like doing this. This is not fun. This is not, I did not even like the clients that I was getting, the type of clients,
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's definitely something you should look at, when you are starting. And I guess, like, for me, if people, there's certain things that you should think about before taking the leap. Like, of course, what kind of services you want to, you're going to provide. Are you passionate about it? Is that something that you can do or have done,
Right.
to help someone else? Are you in it for the money? Are you,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things, you have to, consider when you are entering into that space, because it's definitely going to determine how successful you are. Not so much in the in terms of money,
Yes.
but success in terms of, are you serving the people well? Are you, thinking about your, level of integrity? Are you serving them at a high level? And the reason that I brought all that up, because I've gotten to the point now where, even in 20 years of being a professional organizer, I know the things that I don't want to do, that I don't like to do. Like, I'm not going to anybody's house anymore. I don't want to, those are not the type of clients that I want. And so, and even in the 20 something years of a professional organizer, there were years before that, where I was trying different things, but I had to come to a place where, like, it was the process of elimination.
Yeah.
It was like, this checks, okay, yeah. Is this something that I can do? Is this something that I love doing? Are these the type of clients that I want to serve? Can I serve them at the highest level? That kind of thing, right? Are there some things that you think of when you started your journey? Were there some things that you had, like, was there a checklist, or what? How did you, I guess my question is, so how did you decide on what you decided on?
A whole lot of trial and error. It took me to say, okay, I know this, it might be like a therapy throw in, but oftentimes the thing that we did when we, or at least what I'm finding, the thing that we did when we were younger is probably the thing that you would need to be doing right now, or at least the way that you were going about it. And I forgot that I spent all this time building websites. I forgot I spent all this time talking to people and pulling out the best versions of them, even if they felt like they didn't have the best version of them to present. Yeah. So I had to think back to that. Mm-hmm. It also took me a whole lot of, I didn't start out with, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I did not start out with websites or podcasting. I actually started out with doing photo booth rentals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I started out doing that because I thought, okay, well, I know I don't want to plan an event, even though I have a mom that's able to do that. I know the mechanics of what it looks like. I know I don't want to do that. I had a list of things that I knew that I did not want to do. And then I kept seeing these 360 photo booths. And I kept thinking, okay, that's really cool. But at some point, once you experience the 360 photo booth once, it's kind of the same thing over and over. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, well, let me spend $10,000 on a photo booth.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I don't have that business anymore. But it's because I sucked at selling it, because I did not understand how to communicate that well. And if you're not invested in what you're selling, you can't sell it well. Not in my experience. But I knew that I could sell. I want to help you build your business and make it so that people can find you, so that you're not spending so much time on your marketing strategy and you can actually do the part of your business that you want to do.
Oh my gosh, you brought out so many things. So one of the things that I heard was, in one of the words that I use, like, you have a proclivity toward that thing. Okay. Like you said, when you said, think about some of the things that, you've done in the past, right? And some of the things that, you kind of lean in toward, right? Yes. And so, and even like for me, the different businesses, I can look back at the different businesses that I started, and they all pointed back to some of the things that I really had a proclivity for, meaning, like, in an organization, as a professional organizer, it incorporated my organizing skills, my administrative skills, my desire to help people, to remove the clutter, all of those things. And when I started, I mean, I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't even know a professional organizer was a thing, and I just was like, let me look this thing up. And then there was this association for it, and all that. I was like, oh, okay, I'm onto something, right?
Yes.
And then, saying that is important, to recognize or, look back at some of the things that you really have a proclivity for. And even as I look back, and I share this, in different venues, as I look back on some of the things as even growing up, I always leaned in toward technology. I leaned in toward because now this is before your time, but cassette players. Your mom will
No, that was my
probably.
time.
Okay. Anyway, I used to have a cassette player in my car, but I loved installing them, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I had this thing about electronics and tech stuff, and I used to take apart like a transistor radio because I wanted to see what was inside and see
Mm-hmm.
how things work. And so I was really, most of my life I've been like in a kind of a male dominated arena, most of the time. And so when you said that, it made me think about, the things that I had always had this proclivity for. It was like, these were always, I don't like to cook. So I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
those things are really important. That's, my point. That's my point, is that it's very important to look at those things. And even when I talk to, people who are trying to decide, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, because there's people like at my age are still trying to figure out, well, what is it, that I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, as a career. But those are ways that you can make decisions on those things. And not only that, what you said about being able to sell that service, right? You got to be able to articulate how it works, the benefits, and all that, so that people will want to buy that thing from you, or
Yes.
that service from you, right?
Right.
And so, so all of those things matter when you're trying to make that decision. A lot of people say, well, I just want to do my passion. Well, I'm here to tell you, you probably don't want to start there. It's
Yeah.
important, right? But that should never be the first thing. We have a lot of, I have a lot of passions, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of passions that could lead me in the direction that like, I don't need to go. Right. And so, so it takes all of that. It takes the passion, it takes the proclivity, it takes, all of those things to help you make a decision. So you said so many things, and I'm going to stop there so we can move to the search engine optimization stuff, because I can really go down that rabbit trail, because you brought up so many things that people don't understand. And I love it at such a young age that you discovered, and you were, wise enough to seek counseling from your mom, right? And look at, what she's doing, how she's doing it, and be open to that, you
Mm.
know. So yeah, I think this is really going to be, helpful for people to, kind of think about that if they're trying to make that kind of decision,
I
you know.
agree. This is
Yeah.
exciting. Hopefully it doesn't
Yeah.
cost me $10,000, but that'll be good.
That part right there. So, so let's kind of move into the search engine optimization, or SEO. So let's talk about, so we know that, you use it for websites and podcasting and things like that. How did you, decide, okay, I'm going to really lean in to SEO to help people? How did you, decide? Go ahead.
That was largely on my end, especially when I feel like I've had a bunch of different jobs. I was trying to figure out, how do I get people to listen to a podcast episode for myself,
Mhm.
but then also for different clients. So
Mhm.
a lot of times I started with, once I quit my very first big girl job in the nonprofit space, I made a pivot to doing a lot of virtual assistant work.
Mm.
And virtual assistants gives you an opportunity to really understand so much about people's businesses and understand what area do you want to help people in. And the thing that I really zoned in on was podcasting and just editing those pieces of audio, the video, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But then no one was listening to it. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
figure out, okay, what's going to get people to actually listen to this episode. So I went on a deeper dive and realized some of the things that I was learning when I was, again, 12 or 13, or actually what was search engine optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So I started absorbing all of this information. SEO, a lot of times, or it does start with your website, but it can go into such a nitty gritty of just your podcast episode title.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a searchable thing? At its basis, it's, can people find this information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because I was actually just talking to my clients, we had a group session yesterday, and I was telling them that if we don't get the title and the description of the podcast right,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else is going to work. In other words, they're not going to find you because they're not looking for Aldreama, right? Nobody knows Aldreama. And
Right.
so it's like it's because a lot of people come to me and they want to know, well, what kind of equipment do I need? They want to
Mm-hmm.
know is the right microphone, and all kinds of things, and I say that is not where we're going to start. We have got to start with, who do you want to, determining, just like in business, who do you want to
Yep.
serve, your audience, and then making sure that the content that's in the packaging, which includes the description of the podcast. If they can't find you based on those words, they're just never going to find you. Right?
100%. And
Yeah.
even the bigger podcasts, the top 100 podcasts, they are doing that. I don't know if they know that they're doing it, but they're doing it on a strategic level. I was looking at Brene Brown. She has a podcast that she hasn't even put an episode out in 2 years, I want to say. And
Mm.
that particular podcast at the time, maybe a month ago, was still in the top 100 podcast for entrepreneurship, I believe. And it's all
Mm.
based upon really good SEO work. You can put out
Wow.
one episode, but what goes along with that between the title, the description that you mentioned, what other pieces of content really push that one episode out there? She had
Yeah.
America Ferrera on her website, and America Ferrera's name was not in that podcast title because we love Ugly Betty, but
Right.
what is she offering?
Yeah.
Why do I want to listen to this episode?
Not only that, I mean, it might have worked better if Ugly Betty was in there as opposed to her name, because
Right,
you know,
right.
I used to love the show, but I definitely couldn't remember her name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't remember her name, but I used to love. Oh man, I used to love that show. Love that show. Yeah. So tell us about, tell us about, either, if you can share, about clients or things like that. I'm sure you don't want to, share names or anything like that, but what has been some of your like success stories, or tell us how we can, some tips or something like that. So I'm just going to sit back and listen, because I want to know as well. So I'm just going to give it to you.
Sure. I appreciate that. Two people in particular come to mind. They are both lawyers. One is a woman, one is a man, and they have dramatically different branding. If you, I'll say her name on the thing. So one is Aaron Gerner, And Erin, she has a podcast called Powerhouse Lawyers, and that she specifically talks to people, to women lawyers that are looking to make the most of their law life. They're experiencing a whole lot of burnout, a whole lot of imposter syndrome. How is she talking to them? How is she helping them? And she coaches them, has a retreat, so on and so forth. She, within her very first year of podcasting, I think within her very first year of podcasting, she reached 2,000 downloads and averaged about 5,000 website visits per month because of the work that we did as far as being targeted in literally just having a blog post for every single episode and having an episode title that is very targeted. Whenever you see her push out a particular episode, her little funnel is episode goes out on Tuesday. You're going to have a LinkedIn newsletter that then gets copied and pasted. The exact same information gets copied and pasted onto her blog post. You didn't have to spend all this extra time creating completely different pieces of content. And that has dramatically changed the way that she works. Her own ads are in her podcast episodes, and that's been incredibly helpful. Her open rate and her emails are a reflection of that as well. So this is a content ecosystem that you're creating. People are able to find your information. If they're looking for information about women experiencing imposter syndrome, she's going to pop up. Women lawyers experiencing imposter syndrome, she is one of the people that are going to pop up because she uses that language over and over and over throughout her content and throughout her website. The other part is she did a really good job even before I came along. Whoever built her website was really good at putting a bunch of different pages in there. A lot of times we like to have one pagers on our website, but you actually kind of need a bunch of different pages that are linking toward each other. So if you have a blog post that mentions something about a previous blog post or a previous podcast episode, link it to there because it tells search engines, oh, this content is being updated all the time. Somebody is linking this. This is valuable. Let's push more people in this direction. And search engines can trust you. So that's been incredibly helpful on her end. And that's not even a whole overhaul of what she could be doing for her podcast. Then Gary, and I love talking about Gary particularly because his information is very unsexy. He is also a lawyer. He also coaches lawyers. I don't know what's going on with the lawyers, but their analytical mind, they need some help, but then they also have people that are wanting to capitalize on the information that they have. At first, when I saw his information or saw his podcast episodes, I didn't get it. But then when I slowed down to really understand, his podcast episodes, the episode titles are not sexy at all as far as catchy or making people double take. They're very straightforward. You want to know how to beat overwhelm or beat the what is it called? The billable hour. This is the episode for you. I'm not playing any clickbait. I'm talking about the billable hour here. Click this episode. I'm talking about how this person switched their law firm to only focusing on family law. Click this episode. He's going to talk about how exactly he did that particular thing. So overcomplicating our topics is probably one of the worst things that you could do for search engine optimization. They're the two people that I think of the most because they're doing it very, very well.
Wow. That's really, I was, as you were saying that, I was a couple of things that I, had written down. So, the first client, you were saying she has her own ads in her podcast. I get people asking me about how do I get sponsorship, right? And I'm always like, you sponsor your own stuff.
Yep.
And because I was even reading, because you and I talk about newsletters and stuff like that on podcasting. And I was even reading, this might have been a few months ago, where there was one particular platform that was actually stopping. They were discontinuing allowing people to have those sponsored ads in their episodes, and I don't remember if it was they were discontinuing it, but what they were saying was that people are so tired of those sponsored ads in episodes. Like when you look at like YouTube, like you could be watching something on YouTube and it's like you just interrupted something. I had leaned in on it, you know. And so, but yeah, so, you know, sponsoring, you know, your own episodes and your own podcast, and you can do it in a way where you just kind of you lead into it, or you casually mentioned it. You mentioned, you know, if it's a topic, you know, that something that you're talking about, and you say, well, and by the way, this is something that I always teach to my clients, you know, if you're interested in that, you know, you can go to blah, 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 you know, that kind, and then you keep on with the content. Like by the time they figure out, you just plugged your own ad in there, you're already gone.
Right. And they already have the item that you wanted them to have.
Exactly. So I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, are always, you know, that's one of the, I don't know, do you get that question a lot about, you know, how can I get a sponsor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, especially as entrepreneurs, we want to figure out what's the return on investment for something like this. And it's a lot of upfront work to have a podcast for your business.
Yep.
No exaggeration there. But your podcast is like the billboard that you own by yourself, and you're able to push it out there over and over and over. And not to mention, it offers an opportunity for, if you were to get a whole bunch of downloads at one time, you've already shown other businesses what it looks like to have an ad from you. So they're not having to figure out, okay, well, I want to get her to talk about this piece of, I don't know, mop. What is that even going to look like with her talking about that thing? Well, I showed you this. This is the breadth of example that I can do, because of course I'm going to pitch myself and my stuff better than anybody else's. Imagine what I can do for yours.
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, you also mentioned, you know, about blog posts and things like that. And so, I definitely get it with the blog posts, and it's a lot easier to do those now, especially when you repurpose content. Now, before because I am not a blogger, I do not, you know, even profess that I am a writer, you know, per se. So I used to always associate that, you know, when people say, you know, well, you know, you repurpose, or you know, if it's in your blog or something like that, you know, people will find you and that kind of thing. And so I resisted that strategy, you know, to make my stuff more searchable. But now, I mean, it's even easier, you know, to do. Wouldn't you say?
100%. Sometimes, and different people feel different ways about AI. Sometimes you can get AI to even start the blog post for you. Are they going to do a great job of articulating your voice? Probably not. You'll have to go in and refine things. But it does speed up the process just a little bit for you by pulling out the main points that you talked about. And I think it's important to note that your blog posts on your website aren't for people to actually read. It's for search engines to read.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, because search engines, the prime piece of real estate that search engines are crawling the internet for are the actual words that you are putting on your website. So you putting up a blog post is just telling search engines stuff like that exists over here, send them here. And the best thing that you can do is then embed whatever video or podcast episode in the middle of that write-up, so that really when I see that there's a video or an audio version, I'm going to listen to it, which only helps you to develop more of those downloads and so on and so forth.
Right. That's what they call the hook.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
And so, yeah. But yeah, so and that's something. So I mean, I'm getting so much, like, when you talked about, having different pages,
Mm-hmm.
and your blog post and things like that. Don't even go look at my website, because it definitely needs help, but because I haven't focused on it, but now it does motivate me to actually focus on that a little bit more,
Yeah.
as far as SEO is concerned. And the other thing, as far as downloads, because I like, when you're in this podcasting space, people are always counting their downloads, right? It's like, oh, I just got, 1,000 downloads. I just got, 2 million downloads, or
Yeah.
whatever. How important is that to use as a metric, like, a key metric?
I think it's as important as you want it to be.
Mm,
And I say that from the perspective of what do you actually want out of podcasting? Is it the actual downloads? Because that doesn't always translate into money. One, but then it also doesn't mean that people got anything of value from your podcast episodes. There's a whole bunch of podcasts out there that talk about relationships and 50-50, and it's a whole bunch of drama.
mm-hmm.
That person may have a bunch of downloads, but they're not really feeding the people that are listening to that particular episode.
So good.
It's not really a metric that I really love. To me, it's kind of a vanity metric.
I was going to say that.
Yes.
I'm so glad we had this conversation. Go ahead.
Not only that, but a lot of times the people that actually listen to your podcast episode the number is going to be smaller than the people who may be following you on social media, or they may be engaging with you in your emails.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're asking people to spend 40 minutes up to an hour, however long your episode is. That's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time, and they need to be able to feel invested with you. So I mostly focus on what metric actually matters to you, and why are you actually tracking it. Downloads
Mm-hmm.
matters more if you are looking to pitch your podcast to bigger brands and other businesses for them to buy ad space on there. But a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times, for people that you and I work with, as far as I know, we're not
Mm-hmm.
really looking to get that out of podcasting. We want to nurture
Right.
the relationships, get people to understand what our personality is like and what it's like to
Mm-hmm.
work with us, so that
Right.
then it makes that conversion rate to actually spend deeper time with us a lot easier.
Yeah. 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 Oh my goodness. This is just so good. So good. So good. Are there are there some other tips that, before we kind of, get to a close, are there some other tips that you wanted to share with everybody?
My best thing probably is, if you are going to do anything with your website, I would probably do a keyword research before anything else, because
Mm,
that keyword research is going to tell you what language your people are using. Sometimes people are also misspelling words, but if they're misspelling that word when they're Googling it, you need to be misspelling it too.
oh, wow. Okay.
Because it tells, again, search engines, this kind of content exists here. It's
Hmm.
either you can make a joke about it, as far as, are you spelling entrepreneur this way when it's really
Right.
spelled this other way?
Yeah.
And it shows your personality, gets people to that website, and it tells you what they are searching for. Even if you decided not to do a podcast or decide not to update your website, those are keywords that you need to be using in your hashtags, in the titles of your episode, whatever it is, pepper it across everything. And it
Mm-hmm.
honestly is a quick way to do competitor analysis, because other people who are doing the work that you are doing, you want to be able to look them up and figure out, okay, how are you ranking in
Mm-hmm.
SEO
In
to
that
show them.
genre.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is actually one of the things that, I will do with my clients is, when they tell me, like, some of them may already have a podcast, and some of them have not launched their podcast, but they may be in a place where it's like, I stopped and, for a little while, but I'm thinking about, relaunching it or whatever, or restarting the podcast. And some of them, have never, started a podcast. So, but if they have one and they're trying to restart it, I will go and look in like Spotify or, some of the platforms and listen notes and to see if they come up in that arena, in that genre that they're trying to, be found in.
Mhm.
And so, and when I did it for mine, and so, and when I did it for mine, I had to go back and tweak a few things because of the word organize.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it brings up mostly it brings up some of the stuff that I used to do, like declutter,
Okay.
things like that, and professional organizers. And so and to be honest with you, I really kind of struggled for a while, with keeping my podcast titled Organizepreneur, Organizepreneur Podcast, but I haven't felt the release from God yet to do anything, and so that's why I haven't. And so because I still do it, I just do it in the online space. And so but definitely, yeah. I hope whoever, if they're listening to this thing, I hope they get this, because this is some juicy stuff. This is some juicy stuff. I am just like, yeah, because now I'm like, I'm thinking about the blogging thing, because I repurpose everything,
Yeah.
and I definitely do newsletters, or in emails, uh,
Mhm.
because I think you and I had talked about that before, where it's like you're not fighting an algorithm in emails,
Yep.
right? And in podcasting, you're not necessarily fighting an algorithm, but you're fighting a lot of different competitors, if in certain spaces with your podcast. And if it's not positioned right, people are just not going to find you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I like to break it down to what people are spending, either their attention, their data, or their money with you. And it when I figured it out, it changed the game for me.
Ah!
And you have to figure out this particular piece of content. What do you want more? Their attention, their data, or their money?
Wow.
The social media is more about their attention. But if you bring them into your fold, like your email newsletter and onto your website, you're getting their data.
Man, that right there.
It changed the game for me.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And people don't necessarily think. I know. I can't even say I was thinking about that. But that
All
is
of it is
so good.
valuable. You just got to figure out what's most
Yeah.
important to you at that particular moment. It can't all be
Wow.
three at the same time.
Wow. Yeah. Because that's like currency. I was thinking about different forms of currency, and I was kind of just jotting something down in my journal this morning, and I was like, people think about money, of course,
Right.
that's the currency, but and this is kind of off topic, but kind of piggybacking on what you're saying from a different standpoint.
Sure.
Money is a currency. Peace is a currency.
100%.
Time is a currency, and attention is a currency.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone steals your peace, somebody can actually steal your peace. Like,
Yes.
peace is as valuable, or even more valuable, than money.
Yes.
And we already know that time is extremely valuable, more valuable than money, because you can't get that back.
Right.
So people, from that standpoint, people need to think about, what kind of currency they want to exchange, for certain
Right.
things. Do you want to, let somebody, steal your piece, so. But anyway, let's get back. I want to so what are some things that you're working on that you want people to know about?
The workshops I do every second and third Thursday of every month. The one that is most important for other people are search engine optimization for podcasts. That's where I walk you through how do you do the keyword research that I was mentioning. If you don't do anything else with podcasting or anything, that's probably the space, or it is the place that you would want to start off rip automatically. It's kind of like creating the first aspect of a client avatar, but you got to figure out what language they're using first. So that's the most important thing. I walk you through that entire process.
Gotcha. Oh, that is so exciting. Because I don't, even as you and I had talked before, I had said, I know enough to be dangerous about SEO, just enough to be dangerous. And so, and I'm still learning. That's why I wanted to have you, on, and because I think it's so important, for people to focus on what's going to lay the best foundation for their podcast. So anything else you're working on, and of course, let people know how to reach you, and we're definitely going to put that in the show notes as well. But anything else that you want to share with people that that you're working on, that you want people to know about?
That is the main thing. I want people to know about that particular workshop. And if you want to reach me, I'm largely on LinkedIn with just my name. And then the website is imovesmanagement.com.
Yeah, imovesmanagement.com. Now, how did you get that name?
I'm so glad you asked.
I know, right?
I'm so glad you asked. I love telling this. So my middle name is Iman, I-M-A-N, which means hope and faith. But I didn't want my middle name a part of my business name, or laid out. I don't remember which exact Bible verse it is, but it's basically, the story of the faith of a mustard seed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Iman, hope and faith. Little faith makes room for big action. I moves management.
Oh my God. My head is like,
I know that's a whole lot of thought, and no one else in the world is going to understand that unless they ask. But every time I say it, it feels like I'm speaking that over myself and then the people that I have the opportunity to work with. We can do a whole bunch of different things, but this little bit of knowledge that we have, this little bit of faith that we have, makes room for so much action for us to make for the people that we serve and the communities that we impact.
Wow.
I love telling it. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I love that. For some reason, I was just inspired to ask you about that, because I see it, of course,
Yes.
And I was like, when you said that, I was like, I wonder where she got that name from, because most people, when they create their websites or whatever, they use their name. Like mine is Aldreama Harper.
Yes.
.com. That's, one of my, domain names and stuff like that. But now, do you tell that on your website how you got, how
no. So I don't share that at all. If you ask, cool.
Okay.
That's a moment where we get to experience that together.
I love it.
Otherwise, no, I don't. Not for any particular reason, but it just something else. Yeah.
But it definitely invokes a conversation around it. Do you often get asked about that?
You are the second person to ask.
Okay.
People are like, okay, what can you do for me?
Yeah. I like to get into what the things what makes people where they are now. How did they get there? That type of thing. So yeah. But I am so glad, Tahjma, that that you came on the show. I promise you, this is not the last time. And so, just for the sake of the audience, you definitely want to go to imovesmanagement.com. imovesmanagement.com. Again, it's going to be in the show notes. You want to connect with Tahjma, and especially regarding the workshops. That's on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. Second and third. I'm sorry, second and third Thursdays. Newest Thursday. Second and third Thursday, of the month. You definitely don't want to miss those workshops. I know you got something out of this episode because I certainly did. And so I thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for blessing me, and blessing those that's listening to the show right now. With all of the information and the insight, so much for a young person. I mean, so much wisdom. And I know, of course, your mom would be like, well, I had something to do with that too,
Yes, I was just about to say that.
So when she watches the episode, hopefully, she'll, that we don't want to neglect the part that, she had something to do with that. So, yeah. So mom, good job. Good job. But definitely we'll be back, with other episodes, because I love talking about, these type of things. I love talking about faith. I love talking about entrepreneurship. I love talking about, geeky, techie things, and all that kind of stuff. So who knows what we'll be talking about next time. So you definitely want to tune in to the future episodes. Thank you all for joining the Organizedpreneur podcast. This is Aldreama Harper signing off for now. Happy podcasting, everybody.
Bye.